In the beginning, there was OCR, optical character recognition, and it was good. Well, it was okay. Sometimes, if the document was really clear, and even then only sometimes. Then came IQBot. It took the abilities of OCR and added machine learning and AI technologies. And that allowed IQBot to improve on the accuracy of OCR and perfect documents for straight-through processing. That is, documents that are processed without any human intervention. Now, there's document automation. It's the next step in the evolution of being able to extract meaningful information from printed documents. It continues the advances of IQBot and adds even deeper integration with generative AI capabilities to handle all sorts of documents without the training process that IQBot required. So, what can document automation do? Well, let's try it out. You're welcome to download the sample documents using the link in the video description to try this out for yourself as well. From your control room, we'll select Manage and then Learning Instances. The option that we're going to use here is the Create Learning Instance in the upper right corner of the screen. And when we click that button, we see the Create Learning Instance window. Let's start off with the name. Enter a name that makes sense for you. I'll leave the description alone for now and leave the document type as invoices. The language of these files is English, and so is the locale. The provider allows you to choose which AI engine to help process this document. Here in the Community Edition, you only have Automation Anywhere pre-trained. In the Enterprise Edition, you have some additional options. You also have the ability to choose the OCR provider, which is not a possibility here in the Community Edition. Use of different OCR providers depends on the document itself. For example, Abby is a good general-purpose OCR, while Google Vision works with difficult documents. Finding which OCR engine is best for you does take some experimentation. I'm also going to leave this checkbox enabled for Improve Accuracy using Validation. Like IQBot, document automation improves with feedback. If it keeps getting those same letters wrong and getting corrected in validation, it's going to learn from that and over time start making that correction automatically. So let's hit Next and create this learning instance. Now on this next screen, it shows typical fields for an invoice. Now there's two categories. We've got the form fields and we've got table fields. What's the difference? Let's take a look at one of those documents to see the difference. Form fields are values that only appear once in the document, such as this billing address or the invoice number. Table fields are values that appear repeatedly in a table, such as the quantity of a product or the unit price of a product. Knowing which fields are necessary depends on the data that you wish to extract. Get the list of fields, both form and table, from the process owner before trying to create the learning instance. Otherwise, you may have to create the entire learning instance again. Now for this example, I don't have the purchase order number on any of these invoices, so I'm going to turn that off. If I wanted to add a field that is not listed by default, I can just click on Add a Field. And same thing with the table fields. All of these look good. I've got all of those fields available in my sample invoices, so I can just move on. Let's click Create in the upper right corner, and our learning instance is now created. Now there's three different actions that we can take. We can process documents, we can view the status of that processing, and we can validate the documents. And this goes in order. So let's start with process. And in this process documents, we need to choose our input documents. So I'm going to browse over and select all 3 of my PDF documents. And for the download data to, I'm going to point this to a folder that's already on my computer, ready and waiting for this downloaded data. And that's all we have to do. Now that that's set, let's click Process Documents. And this uploads those documents to the control room for processing and queues the documents for processing. This is important to know since the documents don't necessarily process immediately. Now, after a few minutes, you'll see the bot running window appear once for each one of those documents. This is document automation actually processing the documents themselves. As this is processing, you can click on the View Status, and that'll bring up another window showing you what status each one of those documents is in. Now, once you're certain all the documents are done, you can click this Refresh button, and you can see that we've got our documents in the validation queue. In this case, only 2 of the documents showed up in the validation queue because document automation was confident enough with the results that it just went ahead and straight through processed one of those documents. Now here in the validation screen, we can see each one of these fields along with the system identified regions, or each one of those blue highlighted fields as you go through. You can click on each one of these fields and it'll take you right to that, and there is a zoom in and zoom out if you need to see a little bit closer. Invoice number, date, receiver address looks good, ship to address looks fine, our total amount looks good, and now the table fields. We can see the description, the quantity, the unit price, and the extended price for that line for each one of those. So this looks great. I don't see any problems with this document. If I did have some problems, I can either delete this field and click on it to use that SIR, or I can delete it and drag a box around this too to highlight the value. And you can see that value getting changed each time that I make that change to the fields themselves, like that. Same thing up here for these system identified regions for the receiver address, for example. If I wanted to change the size of this, I can just resize this window so that it only has just the address portion of it, not the phone number and the contact. Same thing with the ship to address. I can change that around. And now I've only got the address portion of it. If one of these fields is really, really bad or the document is unreadable, we can mark this as invalid. And what that does is it puts it into a different folder in our output folder. And that's really for humans to take a look at the document and manually process it or figure out what happened in case there was a scanning error or something. But this looks great to me, so I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And same thing here. My invoice number looks good. My invoice date, receiver address looks fine. Again, I can resize this if I'm concerned about just getting just the address. And over time, document automation will learn from these changes and make those changes once it feels confident enough to do so. Outputs looks good. These yellow outlines here are saying that my confidence level is 70%, which is below its built-in threshold of 80%. So it's not really that certain about the value in here. So it's let me know that, hey, double check this one because I'm not really confident with these values. But they look great to me. So I can mark this as complete by hitting submit. As I hit submit, you'll see the bot agent window pop up again as it moves that document over into the appropriate folder. Now I am done with that tasks. All my documents are out of the validate documents. And if I take a look at my bot's output folder, I've got a new folder in here called success. And inside are the CSV files that are the product of document automation. Each one of the form fields is actually repeated over and over again. That's not a malfunction, because it's repeated for each line that is in the table fields. It's easy with intelligent automation to combine these CSV files into a single file if necessary, or to process them individually. It just depends on your workflow. What did we learn here? Document automation combines OCR, optical character recognition, with machine learning and AI to perfect your documents. Creating a learning instance allows you to process documents from a single category, such as invoices. If you have multiple categories of documents or even different languages, you can create multiple learning instances to better optimize the machine learning capabilities. When validating your documents, you can select one of the system-identified region blue field identifier blocks and resize the boxes, or even create your own by dragging a box in the area that contains the data that you want. After validation, documents are moved into the appropriate folder based on the success or failure of the document to be processed. Thanks for watching, and go be great.